I'm gonna finally show off my RAD game collection full of top-shelf, dank, exotic, vintage retro games. 8-bit joystick. Now, this is gonna look a little different than other retro game collection videos because I own a condo in Portland, Oregon. Not the burbs, the actual city. And for my generation who live in a major city, space is at a premium. So I keep my cartridges in drawers and bins instead of a big nerd shelves. I do have shelves, but they're mainly covered with books. I don't live in a retro game museum, but there are a lot of rad dank games and a lot of rare, exotic, vintage hardware that I'll be showing off. Now, I don't have a separate game room because I play my games where I live. My shelves are there for utilitarian purposes, not decoration. And that's what they do in Japan and most of Europe. I'll show that it's quite possible to have an awesome retro game collection in a smaller space and how I store them. I'll be going over my systems and my games in order of console release. I'm also always looking for suggestions on videos that I should make next, so if you see anything in this video that you want to learn more about, tell me down in the comments, and then you should subscribe to this channel because I might make a video on it. Now, on to the games! Now, my first video game system is not an Atari 2600, it is not an NES, it is actually a Colecovision. And this sucker is so old, it's actually made in America. Now, I have to get this particular one AV modded because I'd like that because currently it's RF only and it needs has a little connection issues. AV circuitry on it is getting a little old. The controllers are terrible, but there is the Super Action controller for the Colecovision, which I highly recommend. Plus, it's one of the coolest looking controllers ever made. Gigantic though. For my ColecoVision collection, there is Space Fury, Carnival by SEGA, Q*bert, Frogger, Popeye, Chuck Norris Super Kicks, Mr. Do, Sub Rock, Donkey Kong, which Marcy amusingly priced at $100, Turbo, Donkey Kong Jr., Smurf Rescue in Gargamel's Castle. This is actually the first platformer ever. Cosmic Avenger, Ladybug, Venture, Time Pilot, Space Panic, and a really good version of Zaxxon by SEGA. Oh, and I almost forgot Looping. And we're finally on to what I consider probably the greatest video game system in the entire world, the Nintendo Famicom. This is an OG Famicom, and it is AV modded. So even though the original Famicom is RF only, this version I can plug into any NTSC CRT TV. The controllers are hardwired in the back, speaker, no start and select on number 2, and the expansion port is in the front, which uses a connector that looks like this. It was redesigned for the Shin Hatsubai AV Famicom, which I absolutely love. This is the one that I recommend everyone get. I need to make a video on why the Shin Hatsubai AV Famicom is the best system that Nintendo has ever made. No joke about that. Comes with a redesigned dog bone controllers, and it features an NES-style connector port, so you can use NES connectors. So here is an 8-bit DOE N30 2.4G wireless working on a Shin Hatsubai Famicom. Nintendo made the Famicom disk system. So the Famicom disk system, which is right here, used floppy disks, or floppy cards, disk cards, I believe it was called, and you'd put the RAM expansion into the Famicom like so. Oh, and Japanese gamers didn't set drinks on their controllers, so they had no problem with having flat systems. So when the Famicom boom was in full swing, Nintendo released and licensed quite a lot of accessories. So this is the Nintendo Wave Gun. This is the Japanese version of the Zapper. I had the hardest time getting one of these because Sendico and other places wouldn't sell it to me because it looks like a Colt 45. But I'm very glad to finally get one. Surugaya would send it to me. So if you want to get one of these, go to Surugaya because Bai wouldn't send it to me. This is a very popular third-party controller. This is a Hudson Bee controller, Honeybee controller, and it's got turbo switches and a longer cord, and it would plug into the expansion port in the front of the Famicom. Also, there is the Arkanoid Zeus controller, which has the spinner for playing Arkanoid 1 and Arkanoid 2. There actually was a version of this that came out in the US. Then there is the one-handed ASCII L5 controller. There's a huge role-playing game craze, and so this is a controller designed so you could play your role-playing game and play Dragon Quest, and your right hand is free to drink beer and smoke and eat Japanese snacks, which is always a good time. So now the Famicom actually has built-in buttons on it, but that wasn't cool enough for Konami. Konami actually released the Konami Hypershot for playing the track and field games. And so actual arcade, so that's what these are. These are two linked controllers that would go into the Famicom expansion port, and you would play the Konami sports games with them. So Nintendo actually developed the Famicom 3D system. These are Famicom 3D glasses, which used a active shutter technology, similar to what the Sega glasses that came out. And so this is the Famicom 3D system, which you would then plug into the ever-used expansion port. And interesting enough, I found out as long as you have the Famicom 3D interface, you can actually use the Sega 3D glasses. So they actually use compatible systems. But wearing this, you're the coolest person ever. The Famicom is designed for short Japanese rooms, and so if you actually so the controllers are not, the cords are not that long, and this does not have any kind of wireless options. Even in Japan, there are not a lot of wireless controllers for the OG Famicom, which makes the Shin Hatsubai new AV Famicom so desirable. So this is a expansion cable, which is marketed the same thing as the NeoGeo. So if it works for NeoGeo, it works for Famicom. I had a hardest time finding this out, but I finally got a set of extension cables for the OG Famicom. Now on to the clone stuff. These are my Famicom clone system, or Famiclones. First is the Lithon Light Play Computer Retro. This was an under $20 Famiclone with the cutest little controllers that I recently reviewed. Now, the best Famiclone ever made is the Retro USB AVS. This is an FPGA-based game system. You need to actually get one of these while you can, because it's the best way to play NES cartridges and Famicom cartridges. So there's a 72-pin connector back here, but there's a 60-pin connector right here. So you can slot in Famicom cartridges and play them in FPGA accuracy. Some people say that they don't like what it looks like having the door go down, but it's not terribly bad. And it looks a lot more interesting if you actually get some stickers and put it on there. So I have a Family Computer logo sticker right there, and I got a logo from Total Games. So I actually think this looks pretty good. And the other cool thing about it is it's got 4 ports, and in the back is a Famicom accessory port. So it gets HDMI output, but you can actually hook up Famicom controllers to it, and you can actually simulate Famicom expansion port for NES using NES accessories. So you can actually play PowerPad games using an American PowerPad. But it works pretty darn good. I enjoy using this to play Famicom cartridges. So if you want to play on a Famicom clone. There's the 72-pin to 60-pin retro adapter that you can put in a Famicom clone system or an actual Famicom and play American games. There's also one like this that I got at Pink Gorilla, but this is a one-of-a-kind thing. I don't actually know where this is from. Then there is the Retro Genesis 8-bit Classic. Now this thing is a Dendy clone. I got this on AliExpress. It is stylized after a Dendy, which is stylized after the Famicom, but it has HDMI output. The AV output is actually pretty bad, but it has HDMI output, some built-in Russian versions of games. The Dendy was a Famiclone that was popular in the former Soviet Union, and it has removable NES-style controllers, some Famicom-styled controllers. The AB is right there, and there are these turbo buttons. I don't quite like the button layout. I like what they did aesthetically. I just don't like their button choices. But you can actually use standard NES 72-pin controllers. And it takes Famicom cartridges and has a fun eject button. Now, down here is this is the 8-bit Pocket Plus by Columbus Circle, and that allows you to plug in and play almost every Famicom game. Oh, don't think I got it in right. There we go. So you can play now the NES cartridges had a small board, but most of the space inside the cartridge was empty plastic, but the Famicom didn't waste quite as much space. So you can actually take this on the Shinkansen, and all the girls that are into retro games are like, whoa, are you playing a Super Mario 3 on a Famiclone? And you're like, yeah, I am, on original cartridge. And they're going to be like, oh, Shanami Masenka, do you want to go get some tea with me? And Ketsuka Katawa, what's your blood type? And that's how you impress all the Akihabara girls. Not really, but still, it's cool. My Nintendo Famicom games. These are my early Nintendo Famicom game cartridges, starting with the Pulse Wave. Now, the Everdrive N8 Fami is not technically a Pulse Wave game, but it does have that Pulse Wave, so it seemed aesthetically important. I also absolutely love it. And look at that awesome vintage Japanese. So, the first game made by Nintendo for the Famicom, the game that the Famicom was actually designed to play, Donkey Kong. Then there is Gomod Kunarabe, which is a game of Go. Then there is Popeye's English Asobi. This is basically translated as Popeye Teaches English, or Popeye's English Play. Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, Popeye, Golf, Mahjong, Baseball, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Tennis, Mario Brothers, Pinball, Devil World, and this is the end of my Nintendo Pulse Wave collection. Devil World Pulse, Pulse Line, Devil World cartoon label, Baseball cartoon label, Excite Bike, Mock Rider, Robot, I believe this is Gyromite, Duck Hunt, Wild Gunman, the label is starting to peel off, Hogan's Alley, if you notice, gun-only games are purple, Clue Land, I need to get a new label on that. Or a new copy of it. Ice Climber, Urban Champion, Soccer, F1 Race, Wrecking Crew, Balloon Fight. The rest of the Nintendo Famicom cartridge, Spartan X, also known as Kung Fu, the arcade game originally developed by Ireme, but the Nintendo Famicom version made by Nintendo. Yoshi's Cookie, Yoshi's Egg, The Legend of Zelda 1, so this was originally for the Famicom Disk System, but it did get a cartridge release later on in the Famicom's life. Towards the end, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, I have the regular black version. There's a gold version that you get from winning a contest in Japan, but they're very expensive. Mario's Golf Open, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario USA. This was previously owned by Tanaka. And Super Mario Brothers 3, Dr. Mario, Joy Mech Fight, a fighting game made by Nintendo that did not come out in the US, Kirby's Adventure, Hoshino Kirby, Hello Kitty World, believe it or not, made by Nintendo. I need to write about that. It is sort of a Hello Kitty-fied version of Balloon Kid ported to the Famicom. I am working on a video on the interesting story behind this. Tetris Flash. So Tetris 1 and Tetris 2 was made by BPS software, but Tetris Flash was published by Nintendo. And Wario's Woods. This is the last Famicom game made by Nintendo. While Capcom was an amazing game developer, they did not put out a lot of Famicom cartridges, but the quality that they did for the titles that they did come out was really amazing. With the exception of 1942, this is a terrible version of this game made by a subcontractor. Then there is 1943, actually made by Capcom themselves. This is when they started to really put attention into it. Dai Makamura, Ghosts and Goblins. This is noteworthy because it's the first use of a memory mapper chip in any cartridge for the Famicom. Pirate Ship Higemaru did not come out to the US. Neither did Sun Sun. Rockman, a little game you might recognize, brought over here as Mega Man. Rockman 2, Rockman 3, Rockman 4, Rockman 5, Rockman 6. By the way, these are not crazy expensive in Japan. You can get them for less than one of the later games in the US. Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. Then this is Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru. It was brought to the US as Yo Noid. They basically completely redid all the graphics. Trojan, the sequel to Kung Fu, but was actually made at Capcom. Commando, also known as Wolf of the Battlefield. Little Nemo in Slumberland, or Pajama Hero Nemo, as he's known in Japanese. Wanpaku Daku Yume Boken, which is DuckTales. DuckTales 2 and Mighty Final Fight. By the way, these two games, very affordable for the Japanese versions. American versions, not so much. Konami actually was a very, very prestigious and productive producer of Famicom games. They had their own cartridge design, and they amusingly had a little hole, and what you're supposed to do is run string and twine through them and then dangle them on the string and carry them to your friend's house. Another awesome thing about Konami cartridges is they actually had a top label. This was unique because the other Famicom cartridges made by many other makers and Nintendo did not. They also had the ability to have some custom audio chips that we did not get in the West. Starting off is Gradius. Then there is Salamander. This is Life Force, but they actually had expanded chips and a really cool, let me show it off, transparent cartridge. And so they actually had the option to have another options pod on the Japanese Famicom version. We got a downgraded version. Then I have Gradius, and I love this because this was actually made by a Japanese school kid, and his label got messed up, so he made his own label out of construction paper. Then there's Gradius 2. This uses an audio expansion chip and is an amazing game that we did not get in the West. Basically, instead of trying to degrade this to run on standard Nintendo expansion chip hardware, they just decided to not do it. Punyan. So this is a Konami game, originally the arcade game, but this version was published by Hudson for some odd reason. So I decided to include it on here. Gambare Goemon, the original game. This is Track and Field 1 and Track and Field 2, and they were combined in the US as Track and Field. Road Fighters, Twinbee, Goonies 1, Goonies 2. We never got Goonies 1 except for in the arcade, but we got Goonies 2, which was weird. Arctic Adventure, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, although it was called something else, and then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, was just released in Japan as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So this is Turtles 1, Turtles 2, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 was released on the Famicom, but it was actually called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. So if you're trying to get the arcade game, get this one, not this one, or get them all. They're great. Twin B3, Ya Kung Fu, Super Contra. Now, if you notice, I don't actually have Contra for the Famicom because it is expensive. I might get it eventually. And there's no Konami code. The American version has the Konami code, but not the Japanese version. Top Gun Dual Fighters. I believe this is Top Gun 2. Motocross Madness. I believe that was translated out here as. Konami YY World, Konami Crazy World, which is like a Konami game remix, and YY World 2 SOS Panic. Absolutely awesome. Yume Penguin Mogatari. This is an insane action game about a penguin who has to rescue his girlfriend, but he's fat, and the bad guys threw apples at him, and he gets big and eating the apples. It is insane and fat shaming. Kid Dracula, Boku Kid Dracula-kun, amazing game. Konami Sports, I believe this was brought over as an Olympic Games, because it is an Olympic Games. Akumaju Densetsu, Castlevania 3, uses the cartridge and the expanded audio. And when I was at Portland Retro Gaming Expo, someone was selling a copy of it at a decent price, so I figured, heck, I'm going to get a backup. So I got a backup. Then Bucky O'Hare, Japanese version, very, very affordable. Getsu Fumaden, the best Castlevania game that's not a Castlevania game, but it's totally a Castlevania game and you don't know about. Getsu Fumaden. Continuing the Konami, there is Parodius Da. I absolutely love the version of this game. Moe-kun, a really, really cool platform strategy game. Dragon Scroll, Tiny Toons Adventures. So Konami wasn't too proud to actually do licensed games. They made Ninja Turtles. They made a lot of money from it because Konami was all about getting paid, son. But they actually did make good games. Tiny Toon Adventures, Tiny Toons Adventures 2. I believe this is Map of Galagalus 2, an action-adventure game that we did not get, a side-scrolling action-adventure game. Stayed in Japan. Quarth, a mashup of Space Invaders and a puzzle. Astro Boy, Tetsuan Atom, a slot racing game. So remote control slot racing games where you couldn't actually steer, but you made these little race cars and you'd go around and race other people. It was super popular in Japan in the 1980s. This was in Yakuza 0, and so it's on here. Gambare Goemon 2. And then they actually made RPGs, really good RPGs that are funny and that I love and I really recommend. There's great fan translations of them. There's Gambare Goemon Gaiden, Gambare Goemon Gaiden 2, Gunsight. This did come out in the US as like Laser Active, I believe. Esper Dream 2, and The Adventures of Mad City, also known as The Adventures of Bayou Billy. By the way, Japanese version has a better difficulty. It's not so user-hateful. Moving on to Namco, or Namcot. Now, most American gamers have absolutely no idea just how incredibly productive Namco was during the Famicom. For some reason, they did not bring many of these out to the US. And another cool thing about some of the earlier Namco games, or Namcot games, is that they're numbered. There is Galaxian, Pac-Man, Xevious, Mappy, Dig Dug, Tower of Duraga, very influential game, Warpman, Pac-Land, Burger Time, Star Luster, Tag Team Pro Wrestling, Dig Dug 2, Tower of Babel, Super Chinese, Legend of the Valkyrie, Sky Kid, Mappy Land, Rolling Thunder. By the way, a really good version of Rolling Thunder. Ring King, Karnov, Super Zevious, the weird version of Star Wars, Dragon Buster, and Kiru, which is, I believe, a martial arts fighting game. So they did come out with these some versions of these cool gold cartridges. So look how shiny that copy of Zevious is. However, I do have a copy of the weird version of Namco's Star Wars, but it's a little scruffy. Family Jockey, I think this is. It's a horse racing game. They had a line of sports games starting with Family. I believe this is like a Sengoku war game. So that's a Japanese military strategy game in feudal Japan. I believe this is a Family Golf Games, the Family for Family Computer, or the Nintendo Family Computer. Family Stadium, this is the start of their very successful, very popular Japanese baseball game craze. Side Pocket, Dragon Spirit, Family Pinball. This is actually a really cool pinball game featuring Pac-Man. Final Lap, a racing game. Don't exactly know how to pronounce this. It's a over-the-top racing game. Super Dimensional Fortress Macross. They made a side-scrolling game based on Macross. Check out my anime game on that. Family Tennis. Yokai Doji. I believe this is a side-scrolling gothic action game against cartoon demons and whatnot. Wagyu Land, Quinty, Wagyu Land 2, Wagyu Land 3, and Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti. It actually came with a sticker set, which is on here, and a little bit of a scruffy label, but one of the best games that we never got in the US. Jaleco. Jaleco was a very amusing Famicom publisher. Their cartridges were really cute because they had some great labels early on, and they also had descriptions of the games and pictures on the back. Many of their early games started with a standard Famicom design, and then they moved on to, let's just call this the Jaleco Big Boys. So these are some larger cartridges. Many of them have dust covers. But the thing about them is many of them they don't fit into overhead things like this. And let me test to see if they actually fit in a standard NES. Sometimes you have to use them in a top loader. I just checked. Nope, they absolutely do not fit in a front-loading standard NES. So you have to use them in a top loader or a clone system, or play them on the Famicom. That's my favorite way to do it. All right, there is Yurusei Yatsura, Lum's Wedding Bell, based on the anime. Fun anime, but a notoriously difficult game. Ninja Jajamaru-kun, another Ninja Jajamaru-kun game. Another Ninja Jajamaru-kun game. Choplifter for Famicom. City Connection, love this game. This gets the distinction of the very first video that I wrote and edited was about this game. And Ninja Jajamaru-kun goes to space, basically. A really cool sumo game. Psyche World 2, I believe this was actually brought to the West as Wampum. Jaleco, I don't really know how to read the kanji, but it's a wrestling game. Pinball Quest, and Magic John, which is a really cool side-scrolling action game, brought out over here as Totally Rad. Almost forgot, Psyche World 1. Technos actually started off the beat-em-up genre with Kunio-kun, hot-blooded Niketsu, hot-blooded Kunio-kun, brought out over here as Renegade, where they redid the graphics and turned the Japanese street punks into American street punks. Then they launched a prolific line of cartoon action games and sports games. The one best known is River City Ransom, Niketsu Hot-Blooded High School. Then there is Niketsu Story Time, Feudal Time, which is basically River City Ransom in feudal Japan. River City, let's see, this is Niketsu Hot Blooded. I think this is Sports Day, Dodgeball, Martial Arts Tournament, Soccer, Hot Blooded Hockey, and then from Kunio-kun, there was the arcade game, and that Renegade then became Double Dragon. Double Dragon 1, Double Dragon 2, Double Dragon 3. Now, before I move on to Tecmo, I actually had a Technos game in my Tecmo folder, so what a faux pas. So this is yet another Niketsu. I think this is a hot-blooded sports game. Probably. It's got the Kunio-kun boys on it. I don't really know. I'll have to look it up. I love the Kunio-kun games, but they sort of blur together. There is, from Tecmo, Mighty Bomb Jack, Exciting Stadium. I just like these dudes where they're fighting with baseball bats. Rygar, Tecmo Pro Wrestling, Solomon's Key, Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Ryukyu-den, Ninja Ryukyu-den 2, also known as Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Ryukyu-den 3. So if you think Gaiden is hard to pronounce, Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden, imagine it was Ryukyu-den. Super Star Force, and Supari Sumo, the very sun-fitted copy of a really, really fun sumo wrestling game. I don't like sports unless it's like women's volleyball, violent hockey, or sumo wrestling. Taito made some quality Famicom games, and they actually try to get on the numbered action. Some of the earlier Taito games are numbered. Actually, they're all numbered. So we got, I'll go in the order here instead of going in numbers. There's Elevator Action, Takeshi's Challenge. This game is made by comedian and movie star Badass Beat Takeshi, and it's brutally difficult and satirical and deliberately cruel to the player. Legend of Kage, top-down racing game. I don't really know. I like the fact that it still has a 200 yen book-off sticker. Space Invaders, Jarvis, Rainbow Island. For some reason, they did not go with the Taito branded label. So and they made a lot of the other games but like Bubble Bobble on the Famicom disk system did not come out on cartridge in Japan. However, Bubble Bobble 2 is one of the most expensive games in Japan. It's almost $1,000. Operation Wolf, Sky Destroyer, Arkanoid, and I do have the controller to play this with an analog controller. Arkanoid 2, Takeshi's Feudal Challenge with a rather unfortunate mustache on Takeshi himself, and Power Blazer. This was brought out over here as Power Blade. However, the Japanese version is cute, a lot more brutally difficult, and is almost a completely, totally different game. And for Taito games, I almost forgot Don Dokudon, one of my most recent ones. Sunsoft. Sunsoft had made some really different games in the West and in Japan. So they had their own cartridge design emblazoned with their logo. So there's Atlantis no Nazo, which Japanese gamers like and many Japanese gamers sort of loathe. It is notoriously difficult. Gremlins 2, 53 Gates. Believe it or not, some of these just got released on a retro collection called Sunsoft is Back, which I need to review as soon as I'm done with this video. And then there was the Gates of Madoka, which was also included in that collection. And Sunsoft actually did a Famicom version of Fantasy Zone. Route 16, which is actually sort of like a Pac-Man game. And Iki, which is a weird action game about a Japanese peasant uprising. Now, Hudson gets the distinction of being the very first third-party developer for a Nintendo system with their first game, Nuts and Milk. Hudson actually was a subcontractor and helped Nintendo program some early titles, and so they actually got to be a third-person Famicom developer, the first one. And some of their early games actually had sort of an aesthetically similar to the Nintendo Pulse line. So there's Nuts and Milk, which Western gamers made fun of when they found out about it, but it's actually a pretty decent puzzle action game, and you can program your own levels. Same thing with Load Runner. And then the Raid on Bungling Bay, Hudson made a conversion of the PC game. Ninja Hattori-kun, Star Force, Binary Land, which is an absolutely adorable, super fun puzzle action game. And then a little game you might have heard of called Bomberman. Bomberman 2. By the way, the Japanese version of this is super affordable. Bomber King. I got this also because of the stickers that the previous owner put on there. Challenger, one of the earlier adventure games. I believe this is known in the West as Million's Secret Castle. Takeshi Meijin Bokujima, which is Hudson's Adventure Island. Adventure Island's Honey. This is a spin-off game about the ferry. Adventure Island 2. Adventure Island 3. I need to get Adventure Island 4. I don't have a copy of it. Super Star Soldier. The Famicom version of Bonk's Adventure. I absolutely love this version. By the way, a lot cheaper to get the Famicom version. And Jackie Chan Action Kung Fu. Ireme. Now, Ireme on the Famicom actually was a bunch of hardware madman. And the legend goes that the CEO of Ireme really didn't like the fact that the Famicom didn't have a power light. So they actually took an LED indicator and had it stick out on their cartridges. So there's a line of 5 games or 6 games that actually have the light. I have all but the 5th one. There is Zippy Race, 10-Yard Fight. This was actually brought out in the US and published by Nintendo because they were looking for a football game for the NES launch. Spelunker, this game is brutal. Squoon, this game is insane. Spelunker 2. Yachimaru, this is Kid Nicky. I love this game. Kid Nicky 2 and Kid Nicky 3 is getting quite expensive. Major League, based on the comedy baseball game, but is just yet another baseball game for the Famicom. Metal Storm, I bought this game by mistake, and I'm glad that I did. So I was checking out the Buy app, and they had something like a buy now auction, and I clicked on it, and I thought there was going to be a second confirmation. I was checking out the app, and it was like, thank you for your payment. I'm like, what? So this is my most expensive game. I paid over $100 for it. I bought it by mistake, but it's a great game, and I'm glad that I have it. And then there's Hammer and Harry 1. Love this game also. Squaresoft made some of the greatest 8-bit RPGs. I'd love to buy some fan translations, but currently my Japanese isn't quite good enough to actually buy an untranslated cartridge unless I have a special reason for it. But here is 3D World Runner, Thexter, Highway Star, also known as Rad Racer, King's Knight, which they referenced in Final Fantasy 15, and this really cool kids label made of Dragon Quest 1, brought to the US as Dragon Warrior, but Dragon Quest really sort of incredibly influential. I like handmade labels made by old school kids. I'm putting it with the Squaresoft because Enix then became Square Enix, but at the time they were separate rivals. But it's my channel. Now, in a bit of a Hudson Soft pickup, I also have Princess Tomato in the Salad Kingdom was actually made by Hudson Soft, as was the Japanese version of Mickey Mousecapades. I think that's what this is. But it was developed by Hudson, but Mickey Mouse or the Disney license was by so Hudson had the Disney license for a time in Japan, but Capcom had it in the West, so they sub-licensed this game or in the US. I think this is Mickey Mousecapades. So, not included in the Nintendo section is BPS Tetris. This is the first Famicom version of Tetris, different than Nintendo Tetris, but the layout is different and the controls, and I just, my brain doesn't work by hitting a button to get it to drop. Tetris 2 and Bomb Bliss. I have an SNK baseball game. I just like the label on it. And there's a ton of Bandai games. I only have a couple of them. I have Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam Hot Scramble, Magical Taruto-kun, and I believe this is one of the muscle wrestling games, but I got this one specifically because of the stickers that the previous owner of this cartridge put on there. They put on there the Dirty Pair. I love the Dirty Pair anime, so I had to get it. And a bit of the Dirty Pair also, and Tani no Naushka. I love Naushka of the Valley of the Wind, and there are some stickers on there. So one of the things I love about J4U is they show you the exact cartridge that you're going to buy. So this was a cheap cartridge, but I literally got it because of the 1980s anime stickers on it. FCI, or Pony Canyon, actually released some Famicom games in Japan. There's Superstar Pro Wrestling, Super Pitfall. Oh, look, I have 2 copies of Super Pitfall. I didn't know that. Attack Animal Gakuen and Oenkyo Town. And I didn't really want to put this in with the rest, but not made by Pony Canyon, made by DB Soft. But this is Layla. This is a better Dirty Pair game than the actual Dirty Pair game. And I just thought I would give a shout out that I love this game. This is one of the best games, Famicom games, that most NES gamers do not know about. The final original Famicom games that I have. Now, these are in various publishers. Kero, I don't really know, but I think this is a platformer, and I think the game's developer was accused of some sort of crime, or the game's designer. Banana, a cute puzzle game, very difficult. I can't quite figure out to play it. Mystery cartridge that I was faded and I couldn't quite read anything on. I got this at the Washington State Gaming Expo. I took it home and cleaned it off, and it's Banana. So there's that. It's like a Journey to the West game. 1986. Shoot. I don't know, man. I just don't know. There's a lot of Famicom. As you see, I have a lot of Famicom. And in this one, I should have did my research and looked that up for you. Sorry about that. Axis Robos Sasa. This is a weird sort of a game where you play a guy with a jetpack that you fire by shooting. Spy versus Spy. Adventure game Touch. This is these kids go out and solve some mysteries, and I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. Booby Kids, an actually really fun little puzzle game, and also I got it because it says Booby Kids. Mini Putt. This is actually a really good miniature golf game. Dynamite Bowl. Now this I got primarily because of the big yellow cartridge. And also, you got a gorilla bowling with an explosive. I mean, if you're going to put a gorilla in red shorts, you're going to get my money. Lunar Ball. Donald Land. This is a side-scrolling McDonald's-based platform game that stayed in Japan. D-Block, a puzzle game. Penguin Coon Wars. I think this was Dino Riki. Doughboy, a not very good PC action game, which was converted into a not very good Famicom game. Buggy Popper. Armadillo. Now, this is almost like the game developers tried to make Sonic the Hedgehog on Famicom. Very good. Suikoden Deca 3. This is about schoolgirls who are juvenile delinquents and beat up other juvenile delinquents using special attacks and yo-yos and stuff. Kokorone. This was made by some of the Mega Man developers that went off and got their own company, and is one of the best Mega Man, not Mega Man games. Pachikon. I believe this is a pachinko slot game. Cosmic Epsilon. Legends of Maladuke, I believe. Now I'm probably messing that up. What is that? Nope, I actually think that is. Perfect Bowling. Now, I had to get this because the girls on the cover were just so adorable. You're going to put adorable girls in that art style, you're going to get me to buy your Famicom game. Fists of the North Star. Again, hyper violent, and I can't believe it was actually on a Famicom game. And I can't believe that this was actually published and yet got a sequel. Transformers Mystery of Convoy. Whoa. One of the worst games ever made. And American Dream, which is actually about a walking, talking pachinko ball, which is about going off and gambling, which in a way is about the American Dream. All right, these are my officially made but independently published recent releases. But the game's developers actually got paid for them. So there's the Retrobit Jalico Collection, Volume 1 by Retrobit, multi-cart collection. Pico Pico Grand Adventure, the Retrobit re-release of Holy Diver, Neo Hyankyo Alien, love this game. 8-Bit Music Power, this is a chiptunes album on Famicom. Project Blue, an awesome indie adventure I reviewed. And 8-Bit Power Final, which, by the way, wasn't their final music album game. Oh, almost forgot to include 8-Bit Rhythm Land. This is an official Columbus Circle release. It's action rhythm game. And finally, my bootleg Famicom games. I don't really know what this one is. I think it's about some girls and eating and running around and platforming. Starry Night DX. This is a bootleg of a recent indie game. Holy Diver bootleg, Chinese bootleg version that I had. An authentic bootleg copy of Tengen Tetris, also known as two-player Tetris. This is actually, I found this at SideQuest Expo about 2 years ago, and there's probably more versions of the pirate version in existence than legit versions. And also, Nintendo sued to get Tengen, said that they didn't legally have the rights to Tetris. So technically, all versions of this version of Tetris is a pirate game. A pirate copy of Biomiracle Bokute Upa, the Famicom version of this, the actual Konami version, is crazy expensive. That's right, kitty. Astro Ninja Man, a recent independent action game. However, they got crazy expensive, so I have a bootleg. A fan translation of Samurai Pizza Cats. A Chef's Cookie and Gourmet World, also known as Panic's Restaurant. The Creon Conquest, the Famicom version. This is the English version on a Famicom cartridge. And Roll Chan. This is the 6 Mega Man games on a cartridge starring Roll Chan. Mr. Gimmick. I'd love to get an official cartridge of it, but this is incredibly expensive, so I have a bootleg. Same thing with Pizza Pops. And this is actually the fan translation. And I believe I met the gentleman who did a fan translation, so I'm going to see if he can actually sign it at Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Hammer and Harry 2. I love this version of the game. So this cartridge is actually green and the label is sort of torn, and they got a photo, like the bad photo of the label, but this is an incredibly expensive game to get a legit copy of, so I can't just morally justify spending that much money on it, so I got a bootleg. The Ultimate Famicom Remix. This is a stupid little bootleg multi-cart full of a whole bunch of different games, and a bootleg version of Aborebo Tengu, Zombie Nation, the Japanese version. Also crazy expensive. So you might be wondering what I've been pointing around with. This is a cat toy. This is a cat toy, and this is a cat. He wants me to take him outside, so I will. I primarily collect Nintendo Famicom games, but I absolutely love the NES and always have. So for NES systems, I have an NES systems that I cleaned and modified the lockout chip on, another NES system that I cleaned and retrobrighted and neutralized the lockout chip. I have an NES Advantage, a Retrobit Power Stick, a Nintendo Zapper, a Hyperkin Retron 3 HD, it can play NES, Hyperkin Retron 1 HD, and I have an 8-bit DOE N30 wireless controller, two Retrobit 8 Origin 8 controllers in different designs, a Hyperkin NES to Famicom adapter, a My Arcade Famicom to NES adapter, cartridge-shaped Hyperkin adapter. And the freaking power pad! I have a Nintendo power pad. It doesn't fit in the shot. I almost forgot to show off my retro USB AVS. FPGA perfection. It's loaded with an Everdrive and a sticker from Total Games, and got some custom sweet labels that say Family Computer, Disc Coon, and the Disk System logo. Absolutely love this thing. If you see some awesome NES and Famicom with scan lines, it probably was captured on here. For someone who told himself that he wasn't going to get back into collecting NES, I sure have a lot of NES games. I told myself I wasn't going to get it unless there was a significance to the American version or a significant difference between this and the Japanese version. Starting off is Dragon Warrior, Legacy of the Wizard, Shooting Range, Legendary Wings. This never came out on cartridge in Japan. Final Fantasy, Dance Aerobics, Wampum, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, City Connection. This has a significant difference with the Japanese version. Athena. The Japanese version is crazy expensive, but the American version is not. The Clash at Demon Head, which I actually like, and I also like Scott Pilgrim. Gotcha. This game did not come out in Japan. Yo Noid. This game is a completely different game in Japan. They basically redid almost everything. Skate or Die. Maniac Mansion. You can microwave the hamster in all NES versions of Maniac Mansion. TNC Surf Design. River City Ransom. Nintendo Tetris. Nintendo Tetris actually never came out in Japan on the Famicom. A very scruffy version of Metal Gear, and I assume that Hideo Kojima himself made the logo. This is a fire-burned copy of Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt and World Class Track Meet. And this copy actually survived the fire of Al's Music, Movies, and Games in Federal Way. A very scruffy copy of Kid Niki the Radical Ninja. Deadly Towers. I wouldn't be a retro video game YouTuber if I didn't have Deadly Towers. The Guardian Legend. Gyrus. This did not get a cartridge release in Japan. Famicom Disk System only. Legend of Zelda: The Adventure of Link. Again, no Famicom Disk System version. Famicom Disk System only, no cartridge version in Japan. Gunsmoke, no cartridge version in Japan. Contra, the American edition. Not only is it way cheaper than the Japanese version, it has the Konami code, while the Japanese version does not. RC Pro-Am did not come out in Japan. Spy Hunter, Castlevania did eventually come out on cartridge in Japan, mostly Famicom Disk System, but the Japanese cartridge version is crazy expensive. Willow, actually a really good game. And Bubble Bobble. Bubble Bobble did not come out on cartridge in Japan. And I also have this awesome personal edition of Metal Gear, which has the signature of Big Boss on it, and it says Operation Metal Gear, Solid Snake. And in the folder, there is a personal letter from Barack Obama. As you can see, it's heavily classified, and he's probably talking about Metal Gear. It looks like one of those letters that you get for writing the White House, but it's not. He's actually talking about Metal Gear. There is Adventures of Lolo, Astyanax, Crystallis, Retrobit's release of Hammer and Harry, Retrobit's release of Hammer and Harry 2, Gauntlet by Tengen, Pac-Man by Tengen, Strider, Codename Viper, Nintendo Pro Wrestling did not come out in Japan on cartridge. Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, disc only in Japan. Cobra Triangle did not come out in Japan. Stinger, this was disc only in Japan. Blaster Master, Gumshoe, an original Nintendo game, did not come out in Japan. Gremlins 2, Renegade, Shadow of the Ninja, Iron Tank, Roller Games, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, Skate or Die 2, Zoda's Revenge, Star Tropics 2, did not come out in Japan, MTV's Remote Control, Low G-Man, Goonies 2, Batman, the video game, Nintendo Ice Hockey, was Famicom Disk System only in Japan, Journey to Silius, Bionic Commando, Star Tropics, original game made by Nintendo, did not get released in Japan at all, and my copy of The Legend of Zelda that I could not get working and featured in a recent video. And for the NES, there is the Unreleased Collection, the 143 Best Video Games of All Time Super 8-Bit Collection, the awesome Radical Pack, it definitely is, the Gambare Guillemon 2 that I actually purchased from John Riggs, the NES Classic Edition Famicom Bootleg Multicard in this really cool transparent case that actually has a Famicom cartridge inside an NES cartridge. Fan-translated Moon Crystal, Splatterhouse Wampaku Graffiti on NES, fan-translated Fire Emblem, the Konami Famicom Chronicle, and Konami 55 Games Best Quality Konami Video Game Collection. I recently started expanding my Sega Master System collection. There is the Sega Master System Gamepad, the OG Sega Master System Power Base. I actually love this one because it has RGB output, supports for cards, support for cartridges, looks freaking cool, and it can play SG-1000 games via the Everdrive. The Sega Control Stick, the weird left side control stick, the Sega Light Phaser, the Sega Power Base Converter for playing Master System games on the Mark I Sega Genesis, and the Master Everdrive for playing pretty much any Sega Master System game and SG-1000 game on original hardware. The Master System Player for Game Gear. This one is by Retro6. And the SEGA 3D glasses and the 3D glasses adapter for all your SEGA 3D needs. For my SEGA Master System collection, I have The Ninja, Rampage, Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Alex Kidd in High Tech World, Phantasy Star, which has a new battery, Zillion, Ghostbusters, Rambo 3, Pro Wrestling, Zillion 2, Triformation, Black Belt, this is the Fists of the North Star localized, Zaxxon 3D, Choplifter, Cloudmaster, Missile Defense 3D, Hang On Safari Hunt, Hang On Astro Warrior, Penguin Land, my Master Everdrive X7, Aztec Adventure, Shooting Gallery, Vigilante, Maze Hunter 3D, Gavelius, Transbot, Ghost House, Alien Syndrome, Thunderblade, Outrun, Alex Kidd The Lost Star, and Double Dragon. I need to get Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. Now, the Famicom Disk System is an exercise in both pleasure and pain. It's very cool, very nerdy. However, it's incredibly unreliable. The drive itself is prone to hardware failures by having a belt drive be broken. One of the only places that I know that can actually repair a belt drive is Tapper Retro Games and Toys in Hillsboro, Oregon. So if you're in Oregon, that's one of the only places, or if you have a broken Famicom Disk System, send it to him and Tappers and see if he can get it working. So I actually bought a junk Famicom Disk System that I had just as decorating purposes, and then he had a spare RAM adapter, and so I actually hired him to get it working, and he actually was. But if you really want to play Famicom Disk System games on original hardware, I actually recommend that you get the Everdrive N8 Fami or the Everdrive N8 Fami Pro, because this can play the entire FDS game system library with incredible reliability and convenience that's actually better than using original hardware. The other problem is that you don't know what you're going to get, and you don't know if it's going to work. So due to the rewritable nature of the Famicom Disk System, not every game that's labeled a certain thing is what it actually is. And also, I've gotten games from my friend in Japan, Dave, who has mailed me games only to have them arrive in Portland erased by the mail service. So the U.S. mail service x-rays packages from Japan, and in doing so, they will erase Famicom Disk System games. So I need to actually make a video on the U.S. government destroying my Famicom Disk System games, which is true. There is The Legend of Zelda, The Adventures of Link, but someone has actually rewritten a Gundam game on it. There is Ice Hockey, 3D Hot Rally. This is one that, this is the origin of the Mario Kart series, actually. And unfortunately, this one doesn't work. Doki Doki Panic, the original Super Mario Bros. 2 in the US. Falchion by Konami, the original Super Mario Bros. 2 by Nintendo, the one that was too tough for American audiences. Nintendo Pro Wrestling. Volleyball. This is the first female star to be on a Nintendo game cover. She beat Metroid by a week, I believe. The Mysterious Masamune Castle. This is one of the greatest Nintendo action games that did not get a release until it got on 3DS Virtual Console. Then I have some fan-made reproductions. These were original disc cards, but my friend Dave in Japan made these for me. There is All Night Nippon Super Mario Brothers and Biomiracle Bokute Upa. So these are cards that were rewritten on these very rare games, and he made some very high-quality labels for them. So I have Super Mario Bros. 2, Volleyball, I believe this is Bubble Bobble and Gunsmoke. And I don't really know. I think this might be Kiki Kai Kai written on here. Again, the label doesn't always match what actually it is. I don't know. I think this might be Castlevania. And a Mario ROM hack on an actual FDS card. So the FDS, again, I love it. I hate it. It's both an exercise in pleasure and pain. If you really want one, get a broken one and get an Everdrive N8 Fami. The NEC PC-Engine. So I actually got a TurboGrafx 16 as a kid, and I was a dum-dum and actually sold it. I have a PC-Engine Core Graphics with a Super HD System 3 Pro by Terra Onion, which has access to every single CD game, every single HuCard game, and output via HDMI. And it can also play Super Graphics games. I have a 5-way tap, and I have the original NEC PC-Engine controller, the gray one, the white one, and over here I have a Hyperkin controller, a Poly Mega controller with 6 buttons, and the NEC Avenue Pad 6. So I have the ability to play 5-player Bomberman. So if you want to come over and have a 5-player Bomberman party, I am totally down. So since I have the entire library of the PC-Engine and TurboGrafx games on the Super HD System 3 Pro, I have just a handful of actual HuCard games. I have PC Genjin, Bonk's Adventure, PC Genjin 2, Bonk's Adventure 2, Keith Courage and Alpha Zone, which I actually cannot play on there, Street Fighter 2 Dash, which I actually have complete in box, Kato-chan and Ken-chan, Fire Pro Wrestling, F1 Circus, and finally Yokai Daichuki. And instead of having a Turbo Express, I have an Analogue Pocket with the PC-Engine adapter. I love the Sega Genesis. As you can see, I have an OG Sega Genesis, high definition graphics. This one actually does have the Sega Enterprises logo, but it does have the original sound chip in it. Sounds great. I have a Sega Genesis Mark II. It has excellent video output. I actually love how the Mark II and how the Mark I sounds. I am not a Sega Mark I purist. I have a Hyperkin Retron 3 HD. It plays Sega Genesis. I also have a Columbus Circle 16-bit Pocket Plus, which is a portable device which plays Sega Genesis and Sega MegaDrive cartridges. I have the Konami Punisher light gun. This is the controversial light gun that Congress got involved in complain about. I have the Sega Genesis Arcade Power Stick. Now, I had one of these as a kid. I actually prefer the 3-button variety. This is one of the most comfortable controllers ever. You can really tell Sega's arcade experience in crafting this thing. There is the original 3-button big Sega Genesis Fat Boy controller. Love it. There's the Sega Genesis 6-button controller made by Sega. There's the Hyperkin. This is an actual, I really do like this controller because it has 6 buttons, has modern ergonomic styling, classic Sega D-pad, and a really long cord. I also have the Retrobit Big 6. This is the wired version, and this is the wireless version. Cool thing about the Big 6 wireless is since it uses a regular adapter, this will actually work with the Sega Master System. So you could actually play Sega Master System games wirelessly. And I also have the Sega Genesis cleaning system. Now you might ask, hey, 8-bit joystick, where's your Sega CD? Right here. I have a Terra Onion Mega SD FPGA card, which has every single Sega CD game on it on a card. FPGA and original hardware two great tastes together at last. So I tell myself that I do not officially collect for the Sega Genesis, but for someone who does that, I do have quite a lot of Sega Genesis games. I have Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, a Japanese MegaDrive version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, I had a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but I sent it to Dave in Japan because apparently those are pretty rare in Japan, so I need to get one. I have Sonic and Knuckles, a very scruffy copy of Strider for Genesis, a bootleg copy of Beyond Oasis because this game is getting crazy expensive and I wanted to have a copy of it on cartridge without having to sell a kidney. Shining in the Darkness, Shining Force 1, Shining Force 2, Phantasy Star 2, Phantasy Star 3, I do need to get a copy of Phantasy Star 4. Virtua Racing, a little bit of a scruffy label. Knight Adventures. Super Street Fighter 2. Mega Bomberman. Vector Man. Eternal Champions, I actually like this game. The Retrobit release of Mega Man The Wily Wars. El Viento. Eliminate Down. Soul Dis. Gaia Res, and my Terra Onion Mega SD, which has the entire Sega CD, Mega Drive, and Sega Genesis collection on it. 16-bit Rhythm Land. This is an indie game out of Japan. It's really good. Fix-It Felix for Sega Genesis. Remember when this came out? I used to love playing this as a kid. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. A bootleg copy of Dai Makamura Ghouls and Ghosts for Sega Mega Drive. My Super 48-in-1 Classic Collection, Hot 4G-bit. The reason why I have this... Oh, I'm wrong. Beyond Oasis is legit. This is legit. It's creator of Senti, which I have down here. This is a Chinese bootleg manufactured of this. This is legit. This is the one that I wanted to have on cartridge. And Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Pink Edition with Amy Rose and Cream the Rabbit. Now, I got the Super 82-in-1 HD because I have the 16-bit Pocket Plus, and it does not like the Mega SD, but the bootleg cartridges work great. Interesting enough, this version of Super Street Fighter 2 does not play on here. This is a clone system, but since it identifies to the software as a Japanese Mega Drive, it will not boot. For the Game Boy, I have my Japanese clear skeleton Game Boy, a Japanese silver Game Boy Pocket, my funny playing FPGBC, and my Analogue Pocket. Here's a fun little Game Boy life hack. Get an IKEA glass coffee mug or something like that, and keep the games that you're currently playing. So this way I can have all the games that I'm currently playing through, or at least the ones that I'm currently enjoying, readily accessible. My Nintendo Game Boy Collection, Part 1. There is Hudson Adventure Island 2, Mario Picross, Tetris 2, I think that's a Kunio-kun Sports Day, Gremlins 2, Japanese, Space Invaders, Bomberman GB, PC, Bonk's Adventure. Bonk's Adventure, one of the, I think this is like a board game. Kid Dracula, Kid Nicky, this is a great game. Or Miyanchimaru-kun, Yoshi's Cookie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Japanese version of Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Ryukyuden, Yoshi, the Game & Watch Collection, Game & Watch Collection 2, Tennis, Galaga and Galaxian, Japanese, Fatal Fury 2, Human Pro Wrestling, Castlevania Adventure 2, Super Mario Land, Bonk's Adventure 2 Game Boy. Actually, I think this might be one of the collections. I have a collection also. Dr. Mario, Kirby's Adventure 2, RC Pro-Am, Japanese version of Super Mario Land 2, Yakuman Mahjong, Nintendo. Game Boy Bomberman Game Boy 2, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Solar Striker, Bomberman Game Boy 3, Magical Taruto-kun, Kirby's Adventure, or Kirby Superstar, Kirby's Star, Hoshi no Kirby, Game Boy, Konami Game Boy Collection 1, Konami Game Boy Collection 2, Konami Game Boy Collection 3, a bootleg version of the European version of Konami Game Boy Collection because I wanted the Gamble Geomon game in English, and Konami Game Boy Collection 4, The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls, Donkey Kong Country Game Boy, there you go, Kunio-kun Sports Day, one of the Sports Day games, Kunio-kun Dodgeball, Hyper Load Runner, a very scruffy version of Kicks, Kid Icarus, one of the Kirby puzzle games. I'm not sure exactly which one. I'd have to look that up. If you know, post it down in the comments. Pyo Pyo, Japanese Bubble Bobble, Tetris Plus, Balloon Kid, Tetris Japanese version, Heiankyo Alien, and Castlevania The Adventure. And the rest of my Game Boy games. There's Bakuretsu Senshi Warrior, the Daikyu no Gensan quiz game, one of the Daikyu no Gensan pachinko slot games, Namco Collection, one of the Kunio-kun fighting games, which was actually translated out here as one of the Double Dragon Game Boy games, or Double Dragon Game Boy 2, Donkey Kong, Killer Instinct, not released in Japan, Samurai Spirits, Samurai Showdown, Elevator Action, Golf, the Taito Collection, this is excellent, Pac-Man, Spartan X2, one of the Ranma 1/2 games. I think I'd have to see which one this is. There are two of them. World Bowling, Kirby's Pinball, one of the Kentaro Action Adventure games. This is actually really cool. Double Dragon, Mr. Chin's Gourmet Paradise. This is a weird game. Wario Land, Baseball, Taito Chase HQ, Kunio-kun Soccer, Kirby Puzzle Game, one of the other Ranma 1/2 games, Wario Blast. This is a US one where they actually took a Bomberman game and added Wario to it for the US release. Rockman, Mega Man World 1, Mega Man World 2, Rockman World 3, Rockman World 4, Rockman World 5, the Game Boy version of Street Fighter 2, Alleyway, Parudia-sta, Kudzu, one of the modern games, Penguin-kun Wars, Maru's Mission, and the Japanese version of Maru's Mission was the original version, which I think is the Ninja Jajamaru-kun game. Lock and Chase, and Tetris! I also almost forgot to include Metroid 2. The Analogue Pocket is a fascinating, powerful FPGA game system that can play a whole bunch of games, both portable, and it also comes with it can play portable games and also through Open FPGA. There's the Analogue Pocket, the Analogue Pocket Dock, the 8-bit DOE SN30 Pro, which I use with the dock, and I have the adapter set for the Game Gear, the NeoGeo Pocket Color, the Atari Lynx, and the TurboGrafx 16. And for Lynx cartridges, I have Road Blasters, Zybots, and California Games. The SEGA Game Gear. I have an IPS modded SEGA Game Gear that has a USB battery and two big battery packs, the Clean Amp mod and the BenVen IPS screen. And going with it, I have Pac-Man, Pyo Pyo 2, Psychic World, Sonic Drift, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Chaos, Dynamite Heady, Star Trek The Next Generation, Mortal Kombat, Columns, Sonic Drift 2, The Revenge of Drancon, Axe Battler, Legend of Golden Axe, a cat, who's he right here, Streets of Rage 2, and my Everdrive GGX7. Oh, I almost forgot. I have a Japanese copy of Game Gear Shinobi 2, my Super Nintendo Super Famicom hardware collection. There is the Retron 3 HD, which can play Super Nintendo and Super Famicom games. My Super Nintendo Super Scope, the Super Everdrive X6, which can play about 99% of games, except for the ones with special chips, which I have on cartridge. A Super Famicom. This is one that I actually took a Super Nintendo and restored the case and put a Super Nintendo inside a dead Super Famicom case. The Super Famicom that I included in my bleaching video and probably overdid it a little bit. A ASCII Fighter Stick SN, 6 buttons all in a row. Look at that, the correct configuration for playing Street Fighter games. 8-bit DOE wireless gamepad, black. Columbus Circle Takeshi Meijin turbo controller, licensed by Master Higgins. A Capcom Soldier Fight Pad with 6 buttons in a row. 8-bit DOE Bluetooth receiver, so I can use any Bluetooth controller with the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. 8-bit DOE gamepad. I prefer the 2.4G over the Bluetooth controllers for speed and compatibility, just reliability. And it's simple. You turn it on, it works. Super Game Boy, Super Game Boy 2, Hyperkin mouse controller. This is a laser mouse and is bigger and has a longer cord than the Nintendo one. And a Super Famicom controller and a Super Famicom controller. I love me some Super Famicom. But I do not have an adapter to play American games on the Super Famicom. If you know how to get one, let me know. I mostly just use my Retron 3 HD for Super Famicom, or just play the games on my Everdrive. Almost forgot my Hyperkin Superboy portable Super Nintendo Super Famicom. So I have a lot of Famicom and Super Famicom games that I have to cover. So I'm going to try and at least tell you the translation of the title if I know it. If not, I will at least try and describe it. But I don't quite have time to look up absolutely every game. So we got Super Dai Makamura, Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Double Dragon, Super Adventure Island, Castlevania 4, or Akumaju, Demon Castle Dracula. I believe this is Kirby's Superstar. Yeah, Hoshino Kirby Super Deluxe is known in Japan. Super Baseball 2020, funny, the futuristic year of 2020. Japanese Final Fight Guide, this is the best version of the game. Final Fight 2, Pilot Wings, Toraneki Yaku. So this is like Tiger Cats baseball. It is freaking adorable. Cartoon cats playing baseball. UFO Yakusoba Yakunman. This is like a beat 'em up game starring a fighting hero that is an advertising mascot for instant noodles. One of the Mickey Mouse games on Super Famicom. Hudson Adventure Island 2, Parlor Mini 4, I believe this is like either pachinko and slot games. Crayon Shin-Chan 2, this is Fatal Fury. Super Mario World, Super Scope 6, Super Genjin, this is Bonk's Adventure. Mario and Wario, Super Mario Collection. This is Mario All-Stars. Gambare Daikaku Gensan. This is Carpenter Gensan or Hammer and Harry. I believe this is one of the last ones. I think there's a PSP game after this. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. There is one of these slot games. A slot racing game that is like remote car slot racing. Capcom's Aladdin, Cats Run K-Car Racing. This is a great racing game made by Atlas of all people. I need to do a video on this. Garo Densetsu 2, Dino City, a great platformer. Super Mario Kart, Contra Spirits, also known as Contra 3, Parodius Da, love this game. Garo Densetsu Special, Fatal Fury Special, a cursed copy of Super Mario Kart that I got in a cursed auction. And there's actually a dodgeball game on the inside, and Hashimoto wrote his name on it. Kirby's Adventure 3. This has a lovely... I just love that this game, that in Japan, they got a sparkle on the cover. Look at that sparkle on the cover, on the label. Super Hanafuda. This is the Hanafuda game that Nintendo got into business in making. So this is like you actually... So eventually I'd like to learn how to play Hanafuda, but I don't know enough about Japanese culture to play a successful game of Koi Koi using Hanafuda cards. Super Space Bazooka. This is one of the light gun games. I think this had a different name when it was brought to the US. If you know, leave it down in the comments. F-Zero. Rockman X, also known as Mega Man X, Rockman X2, Rockman X3. By the way, these are super affordable to get the Japanese version. Kunio-kun Dodgeball, Super Wagyu Land, Super Wagyu Land 2, Poppin' Twinbee, Rockman and Forte, or Mega Man and Bass, and Pyo Pyo 2 Remix. There is Space Invaders, Wild Tracks, I believe this was like Stunt FX, Gradius 3, Super Bomberman. This is Bomberman Panic W. I believe this is a puzzle game. I think this is Rintama. Basically, it's like an action game with Shinobi Boys, Ninja Boys based on an anime. Super Street Fighter 2, Sparkster. Disney Magical Adventure 2, Ranma 1/2. I believe this is one of the fighting games, or this might be the Red Cat Gang. A Sailor Moon puzzle game. Mario Paint. I believe this is a platformer about a monkey. I think the Coco's Adventure, this might have been translated into as. Yoshi's Safari. Magical Taruto-kun, a sequel to the Ninja Brothers anime. Yoshi's Island, Super Bonk's Adventure 2, one of the great battle games with Gundam and the rest, and Kamen Rider. Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Country 2, Donkey Kong Country 3, The Legend of Zelda, and a really awesome sumo game. There is Super Bomberman 2, Super Bomberman 3, Super Bomberman 4, Super Bomberman 5, Rockman Soccer, Mega Man Soccer, Twinbee Rainbow Bell Adventure, Star Fox, Akomaju Densetsu XX, Saturday Night Slam Masters, also known as Muscle Bomber, Magical Sword. This is actually a really great version of a really great game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Fighters, also known as Mutant Warriors in Japan. Kunio-kun Oenden. This is a competitive puzzle game based on the Kunio-kun characters eating Japanese fish cakes. It's actually better than you think. Super Metroid. Cool thing about this is it has a full English version. Rockman 7. One of the Kunio-kun dodgeball games, I believe. This is Sexy Parodius, Gokuro Parodius, and Okabarashi Parodius, which is a crazy talking Parodius. Tiny Toons Adventures and this was previously owned by Tomoko. Area 88, also known as UN Squadron. Street Fighter 02, also known as Street Fighter Alpha 2. Again, I'm amazed that this game is actually runs on Super Famicom. Power Athlete, Ranma 1/2, Ranma 1/2 2, and Super Street Fighter 2. And I believe that is all of my Super Famicom games. These are my fan translation bootleg carts. There is Ranma 1/2 Legends of the Red Cat Gang, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing Endless Duel, Super Back to the Future 2, Magical Pop, Final Fight Tough, also known as Final Fight 3, Magical Knight Cotton, Earthbound. This is basically in the shape of a PAL Super Famicom or Super Nintendo cartridge. Of course, I can play this on my Super Famicom. By the way, Earthbound, never released in Europe. Chrono Trigger, never released in Europe. And Gunmen's Proof, or Gunpuru. This is an awesome action RPG that we never got in the West. This is a fan translation. Now, a very special set that I want to show off is these are my trans carts. So there's Ganbare Goemon 1, and the American version was translated officially by Konami as Ganbare as Legend of the Mystical Ninja. However, there were 3 more games that we did not get. However, they were excellent fan translations. So this is a trans cart, which has a fan-made English translation of this game. And since I had the original Japanese versions, I found that they actually had the boards fit. So I took the English board and put it in the Japanese cart so I could play it on my Super Famicoms. And I did the same thing with Super Mario RPG. So this is an American board inside a Japanese case. And I figured for good storage, I put the Japanese version in here. So, Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Ganbare Goemon 2, Ganbare Goemon 3, Ganbare Goemon 4, Legend Ganbare, 1, 2, 3, 4, and Super Mario RPG. Another really special cartridge that I want to show off is this. Now, this is a Super Famicom memory unit, and so this has the official Nintendo, it's a flash cart. And what they would do is this has rewritable memory on it, and you would go and plug it into a kiosk at Lawson's and download games to it. So this has Kiki Kai Kai 2, and The Fireman on it. I bought this on a Syndico auction, but so this is Pocky and Rocky 2, and The Fireman, the Japanese versions, but it is unique. This is the only one that I know of that's like this, and they actually had little stickers that you could put on there. And so this is not a pirate cart. This is made by Nintendo. And I love it because I'll probably never be able to afford or justify myself the amount of money that I would spend on a legitimate copy of these games. Oh, but that's the thing. This is a legitimate copy of this game. They also have a printed out manual, but it's not pirated, but you downloaded it to the cartridge and the game developers actually got paid. So cool. Now, since I mainly collect Super Famicom games, I don't have a lot of Super Nintendo games, but these are the ones that I have. Zombies Ate My Neighbors, Assault Suits Valken, Doom, love this game, and Killer Instinct. Funny enough, Killer Instinct was never released in Japan. This is my official Super Famicom, Super Nintendo re-releases. There is Joe and Mac Ultimate Caveman Collection by Retrobit, Dad Eats Classic Collection by Retrobit, Jalico Brawler Pack by Retrobit, Undercover Cops, I believe this is by Limited Run Games, and then there is Assault Suits Valken and Shabibiman Zero. This was a Columbus Circle release. For my SEGA Saturn collection, I have a US SEGA Saturn, which I have modified with a Terra Onion mode, and I have an SSD with every single SEGA Saturn game on it. Then I have a Japanese Saturn arcade stick, a Retrobit style fighter gamepad. I also have the original gamepads, the SEGA Saturn 3D controller, a SEGA Saturn memory module, and the SEGA Saturn RAM expansion. Sega! So, a while back, Marcy gave me a SEGA 32X expansion unit that someone gave her. Well, someone gave it to her because it is busted. It does not work. I got the cords and tested out, and it is mostly dead. It is completely dead. I might as well get a Sega Genesis 32X at some point, but if I got one, I'd have to disconnect it. So if I really want to play Sega 32X games, I'll just do it on my RetroPie. Or even my Miyoo Mini Plus can run 32X games. The Nintendo 64. So I have a Nintendo 64 with the expansion RAM, and I have an original controller, but I mainly use the Retro Fighters wireless controller, and there's the receiver for it. Got a rumble pack for it. And here's my entire software library for the N64. I got Shadows of the Empire and an Everdrive 64X7. The reason why I got this is because when I purchased this, I wanted something to play it while I was waiting for this. But I have the entire software library for the N64 right here. Game Boy Color. I have a Game Boy Color skeleton. This is a clear one, which was only released in Japan. And I also have my funny playing Game Boy Color FPGBC, which I absolutely love. You need to get yourself one of these. You need to put this together. You need to actually watch my videos on these. The funny playing FPGBC, very cheap, heck of a lot. Well, it's affordable. It's like $83. It's so much fun. I love this thing. For my Game Boy Color games, first off is the black ones. These work on both the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, as well as the Game Boy Advance. There's Wario Land 2, R-Type DX, Gumball Goemon. I believe this is one of the... This might be one of the RPG ones. The New Adventures of Mary, Kate, and Ashley. There's actually a really interesting development story behind this game. It actually started off as a South Park game. The creators of South Park said no, so it set off the Mary, Kate, and Ashley video game empire. Space Invaders X, the Japanese edition. It's funny because this is a Western developed game by Activision, but published in Japan by Taito, who actually, created Space Invaders. Dragon Warrior 1 and 2. This is actually a really good version of the game. This is the version that I'm currently playing. Love this game. Rockman X, also known as Mega Man X. Tetris DX. Game & Watch Collection, Volume 3, Japanese edition. Miss Pac-Man. Pocket Bomberman. By the way, this is actually a platformer. And The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. This is a game that I actually bought from Japan. This is an American version of the game, which they sold to a Surugaya in Japan, and I bought it and re-imported. So it was made in Japan, shipped to the US, shipped back to Japan, and then I bought it and it got shipped back to the US. USA. A Konami Pocket Baseball game. I believe this is, again, it's cute Konami Baseball, but I'm not that into baseball games. Mario Golf GB, and getting down to these are the cleared Game Boy Color exclusive games. Donkey Kong 2001, I believe this is Donkey Kong Country on the GBC. Kirby Tilt and Tumble, I believe. My Everdrive GBX7, love this. It can play just about anything. The Grinch. Absolutely love this game. This is the best Metal Gear game that people don't know about. Go watch my other videos on it. The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons, Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, Donkey Kong GB. This is Donkey Kong Donkey Kong Land 2 GB, Wario Land 3 Japanese, NFL Blitz. I got it in a bundle. I'll have to get rid of it. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. This has motion sensing and rumble. You actually put a battery in here. Super Mario Brothers Deluxe this is the original. This is the version that had the original release. Well, it has. I'd have to check to see whether this came out before. Probably Super Mario All-Stars came out, but this has Super Mario 2 Japanese on it. Mega Man X2, a little bit of scruffy cape, so I got 1 and I got 2. Spider-Man came in a bundle. And Dance Dance Revolution Game Boy and Mario Tennis Game Boy. The NeoGeo Pocket Color. So I have a clear NeoGeo Pocket Color. This one was only released in Japan. I believe it's the crystal variant. I believe this is Last Blade 2. It might be Last Blade 1. I'd have to check it out. It's a Japanese variant. Samurai Showdown 2. Metal Slug First Mission. Hanabi Pachinko Slots. I thought this was a pachinko game. It ends up as just a slot game. Puzzle Bobble Mini. A cat. Fatal Fury. First Contact. King of Fighters R2, Japanese. Sugate Puzzle de Pawn. I think that's how it's pronounced. Yeah. Sugake Pawn Puzzle. Sugake Pawn Puzzle. A puzzle game. Card Fighters Clash, Japanese. I thought this would be in English, but alas, it does not. Sonic Mini Pocket Adventure. SNK versus Capcom Match of the Millennium. Freaking love this game. And the Neo Pocket Game Drive. So this is from Stone Age Gamer, and I can actually run any NeoGeo Pocket game. This is a cat. I did not ask him to be a part of this shot. He just sort of sauntered in. The thing about boxes and disc game cases. All right, get ready for the controversial part that I'm sure that a ton of box collectors are going to be offended by. I collect my games to play, and I'm at a point in my life where I very rarely sell games. All of the times that I've sold off my game collections in the past, I've regretted it, and I'm not doing it anymore. So I actually collect my cartridges loose. And for disc-based games, I've always put them in CD binders and I've gotten rid of the cases. And I'm sure that there are a lot of box collectors that think that I'm a heretic. But then again, I live in the city and they probably live in the suburbs. Also, I don't play the boxes. I'll look at them when I initially get the game, but I don't keep them around. But looking on the bright side, now you can claim that your boxed game collection is rare because of people like me. And that's the great thing about our hobby. You're free to collect and play your games the way you want to, and this is what I do. Moving on to the SEGA Dreamcast. I have a black SEGA Dreamcast of coolness, which I got the power adapter replaced. I have the black SEGA Sports control pad, a blue SEGA control pad, a Retro Fighters control pad, a 6-button Mad Catz control pad, which is okay for fighting games. It's mostly used for 6-button fighting games, and the keyboard used for typing of the dead. SEGA Dreamcast. Now, I actually have 2 SEGA Dreamcast game cases because I was big into SEGA Dreamcast. I do not have a Terra Onion mode in my SEGA Dreamcast because I have a lot of Dreamcast discs. I got Heavy Metal Geometrics, Cyber Troopers Virtua On, Mortal Kombat Gold, Virtua Tennis, Techromancer. That's right, folks. I got Techromancer. Crazy Taxi 2, Sonic the Hedgehog Adventure 2, Makken X, at Capcom versus SNK, freaking great version of a great game. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, again, great version of a great game. SEGA Smash Pack, okay emulation collection. Giga Wing 2, Razor Scooter Freestyle, Marvel vs. Capcom, great. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Garu Mark of Wolves, House of the Dead 2, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Shenmue 2. This is the PAL edition of Shenmue 2 that I can play on a US Sega Dreamcast with subtitles using a bootloader. Shenmue 1. My bootloader, Utopia. Look at that legit, completely legit CDR bootloader boot disc. Sorry, Sega Dreamcast. By the way, my copy of Shenmue is from Hollywood Video. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, great version of this game. Tomb Raider, Bust-A-Move 4, Tomb Raider The Last Revelation. Trick Style, Revolt, Atari Anniversary Edition, Sega Tennis 2002, 2K2, Toy Commander, Street Fighter Alpha 3. This is a great version of the game. King of Fighters Evolution, Sonic Shuffle, not for retail, Giga Wing, Grand Theft Auto 2, WWF Attitude, and I bothered to get some sport games because why not? I think this probably came with a system. NBA 2K1, NHL, and FL, Bangayo, Sega Rally, Bomberman Online, Sonic Pro Skater, Japanese version of Power Stone 1, King of Fighters, Dream Match 1999. That is my first case. Second case, we have Hello, my name is Dreamcast, Volume 1, Jet Grind Radio, Namco Museum, Seaman, Make Your Own Joke, Skateboarding, MTV Sports Skateboarding, Matt Hoffman Pro BS. That's right, Kitty. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, great version of the game. Gunbird 2, Quake 3 Arena, Midway's Greatest Arcade Hits Volume 2, Power Stone 2 on the Sega Dreamcast. That's right, I have it. Soul Calibur, World Class Baseball, Rippin' Rider Snowboarding, Space Channel 5. Another copy of Space Channel 5. Project Justice, that's right, I got Project Justice, and Hydro Thunder. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, 18-wheeler, American Pro Trucker, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, and a Bleemcast. I believe this is Bleemcast Metal Gear Solid, so I can play Metal Gear Solid for PlayStation 1 on the Sega Dreamcast. I got Skies of Arcadia, Wacky Racers, Unreal Tournament. The other disc of let me actually put them next to each other now. That actually gets me. Great version of Unreal Tournament though. There, now they're next to each other. Virtual Fighter TB, another Crazy Taxi, best version of the game. Rayman 2, Grandia's a 2 soundtrack, Daytona USA, Ready to Rumble, Dead or Alive 2 from Hollywood Video, Grandia 2, and Bleemcast Tekken, so I can play. I need to do a video on Bleemcast so you can play. So this is a PlayStation 1 emulator for Dreamcast. Sony sued the daylights out of this because they were unhappy with any kind of early. But this was while they were still selling PlayStation games. Plasma Sword, Street Fighter 2 Double Impact, great version. The Typing of the Dead, I need to do Typing of the Dead. Sonic Adventure, Choo Choo Rocket, and DCX for Dreamcast. Play imported games on your Dreamcast. Shenmue, Disc 3, which I need to put by my other discs. There are several systems that I do not currently own due to the excellent backwards compatibility on later systems that I actually have. This includes the Sony PlayStation, the original Xbox, the Nintendo Wii, the PlayStation 4, so I will include their game library when I cover the later systems that I play them on. Now, I don't actually have a PlayStation 1, I use PlayStation 2s. I have a stock PlayStation 2 Slim that I got at Goodwill for $10 back in the day. I have a Retro Fighters wireless controller, a SNK NeoGeo CD 6-button controller for PlayStation 2 with a nice clicky gamepad. This thing is amazing. A Capcom 6-button controller fight pad for PlayStation 2. A American OG PlayStation digital controller. A Japanese OG digital controller. It's slightly smaller. And then a black PS2 DualShock 2, a silver Sony DualShock 2, and my original PlayStation 2 Slim, which I have customized. So it has a double door on it. So for use of boot images, or for basically so I can import Japanese game and can play legally acquired Japanese games. By you put in a swap disc, you boot it up, it spins around, and then you open the second door, and so you can swap out the disc without triggering the lockout. I have this sweet devil smoking devil sticker on it. that I put on it back in the day and never took it off. And these, believe it or not, these little pads, these metal stands are super cool, and they are rare and hard to come by. I actually had to import this from Japan. I had one back in the day. I got rid of it. I regretted it, and I had to get this on Sendico. So I have the wireless receiver for the fight pad, and also a memory card and bootloader, so I can play some PlayStation 2 games and not have a physical copies, and maybe talk about. So if you might see some import PlayStation 2 games in the future on this channel using this little device right here. So make sure that you're subscribed and like this video, but mainly subscribe. And PlayStation 2 in no particular order: Super Bust-A-Move, Capcom Fighting Evolution, SNK Arcade Archives Volume 1. I wish they came out with number 2. Colonna 2, Virtual Fighter 4 Evolution. Barbie Horse Adventures, Wild Horse Rescue. Check out my video on that one. It's pretty good. NeoGeo Battle Coliseum. Dragon Quest 8. Tekken Tag Tournament. Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. The War of the Monsters, Ridge Racer Evolution, Jeopardy! Gradius V, King of Fighters 2001, King of Fighters 2000, The Bouncer, King of Fighters 2006, that's the 3D one, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Samurai Legend Musashi, that's the sequel, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4, SSX 3, Super Bust-A-Move 2, Tenchu Fatal Shadows, Godzilla Save the Earth, Castlevania Curse of Darkness, SSX, Evil Dead Fistful of Boomstick, Sega Classic Collection. This is the 3D remake of some classic Sega games. Shadow the Hedgehog, Evil Dead Regeneration, Castlevania Lament of Innocence, Yakuza 2, and a Japanese port of Nights into Dreams on the PlayStation 2. Tenchu, Wrath of Heaven, Maximo, R-Type Final, Auto Modelista. Love this game. Samurai Showdown Anthology. Fatal Fury Battle Archives 1. Fatal Fury Battle Archives 2. The Hobbit. Gradius 3 and 4. Shinobi, the 3D game, Mega Man X7, Katamari Damacy, and I believe this is We Love Katamari. Gran Turismo 3, Godzilla Save the Earth, Arcade Heart, Space Channel 5 Special Edition, Taito Legends, Ridge Racer V, and I got a CD-ROM loader and a DVD-ROM loader. These are DVD. This lets you play import games on a PlayStation 2 that has a swap-out door that I had. Capcom vs. SNK 2. A Japanese version of SNK vs. Capcom SVC Chaos. A Japanese copy of Vampire Chronicles Collection, which is Darkstalkers. King of Fighters Neo Wave, Japanese edition. Japanese copy of this is Last Blade 1 and 2. Japanese copy of Metal Slug 5. Metal Slug 6, actually. Metal Slug Anthology, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, Gran Turismo 4, Samurai Champloo Sidetracked, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge, SSX Tricky, Fight Club. They actually made a game of Fight Club. Street Fighter Anniversary Collection, the original Yakuza, Star Wars Bombad Racing, Street Fighter Alpha Anthology. This is a great collection. Capcom Classic Collection Volume 2, Capcom Classic Collection Volume 1, Taito Legends 2, Half-Life, Mad Maestro, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, and this is a 3D version of Bonk's Adventure that was only released in Japan on PlayStation 2. It's a great version of the game. Namco Museum, Guitar Man, Futurama. Guess who has Futurama on PlayStation 2? I do. Simpsons Hit and Run, Wipeout Fusion, Space Channel 5, Special Edition, and Soul Calibur 3, Unison, and Mr. Mosquito. So the PlayStation 2 games that I have in my other box there for the Wii U are ones that there are other ports of those games on later systems. My PlayStation 1 collection. Ridge Racer Type 4, Castlevania Chronicles, Final Fantasy Tactics, Wipeout XL, love that game. Lunar 2, Final Fantasy 7, more Lunar 2. Breath of Fire 4, Brave Prince or Musashi, Threads of Fate, Final Fantasy Anthology, Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy Anthology, Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy Origins. Love this version of the game. Final Fantasy 4. Tekken 3, Alundra 2, Final Fantasy Chronicles Chrono Trigger, Legends of Mana, One Peach Mansion, Einhander, Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, Chocobo Racing, Alundra 1, Final Fantasy 9, love this game, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 7, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter EX Plus 2, Mega Man 6, Mega Man 8, Mega Man X5, Mega Man X4, Ghosts in the Shell, Soul Blade, Mega Man Legends, Syndicate Wars, Warhawk, Clique the DNA Imperative, and Robotron X. Tenchu 2, King of Fighters 99, Bloody Roar 2, Gran Turismo, Arcade Mode, Unajama Lamy, Parappa the Rapper, Tabal 2, Wipeout 3, Colonna, Metal Gear Solid, RPG Maker, Capcom vs. SNK Pro, N2 Nitrous Oxide, Silhouette Mirage, Samurai Showdown 3, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Tony Hawk Pro Skater, Activision R Classic Games, Chess, King of Fighters 95, Eternal Eyes, and Colony Wars 1 and 2. Well, discs 1 and 2. The Italian Job, Siphon Filter, Gundam Battle Assault 2, Cool Borders 4, The Driver 2, Grand Theft Auto London 1969, Driver, Grand Theft Auto 2, Grand Theft Auto 1, Mobile Light Force, Shooter Space Shot, Tekken 2, Mr. Driller, Military Madness Utopia, Soul Divide, Jeopardy, All-Star Jammin' D-Ball, Board Game Top Shop, Star Wars Masters of Terrace Kai, Bomberman Party Edition, Incredible Crisis. The second disc of Gran Turismo, Ridge Racer Revolution, Rage Racer, Star Gladiator, Darkstalkers 3, Bushido Blade 2, Ridge Racer, bonus turbo mode game disc. Strider 2, Strider 2 misprint, where they put Strider 2 on the disc labeled Strider 1, and Strider 1, great version of the game, on a disc labeled Strider 2. Tenchu Stealth Assassins, Game Shark for PlayStation, boy, I haven't used this in a while, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Bushido Blade, the original Wipeout. I believe that is that. I almost forgot, I have the Sony PlayStation 2 remote, so for, watching DVDs and whatnot. And a little organization hack that I wanted to show off is use a coffee mug that you can put by your consoles to store memory cards. And the other big organization hack that I wanted to show is my love of freezer bags that are sealable. So when you have a whole bunch of controllers, You got your 2-gallon variety and your 1-gallon variety. This can usually hold about 2 controllers. This can hold about 3 controllers. So the way to store your controllers and avoid the giant tangle mess is to store like-minded controllers in these freezer bags. That way you can just pull them out, play with it, put it back, and easy peasy, and you keep from having a giant rat's nest of cords. The Nintendo GameCube. I have a purple Nintendo GameCube with the Game Boy player. And I had the laser adjusted at Hawthorne Game Exchange, and they put a little sticker on it for me, which is my name, and so I've always kept it on there. There's the Game Boy player disc and a case. I have a purple GameCube controller, a black GameCube controller, and a Nintendo Wavebird and the receiver. I was initially going to buy a wireless controller at Hawthorne Game Exchange, and I asked the store owner, Nat, and I said, hey, who makes a good wireless controller for the Nintendo GameCube? And she said, Nintendo! Nintendo makes a good wireless controller for the GameCube. So I said, fair enough. So I bought one. Now my GameCube collection is a little weird because they have these little discs and they come in these little cases, and then I combine them into like the Krull of GameCube Ultimate. Yes, that's a reference to Krull. Starting off, I have Sonic Gems Collection, Mega Man Anniversary Collection, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Namco Museum, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Metroid Prime, Resident Evil Disc 1, Resident Evil Disc 2, SSX on Tour with Mario, Luigi, and Princess Peach. Pikmin 2, Robotech. Normally I hate Robotech, but this is a good game. I love Macross, hate Robotech, but more on that later. WarioWare. So, that's one of them. Number 2, Luigi's Mansion. Beautiful Joe. Rampage, the World Tour. Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters. Blank. Tales of Symphonia. Tales of Symphonia. Billy Hatcher. Paper Mario, which was owned by Victor Stadermeyer, who wrote it on there. Victor, if you're out there, let me know. I have your copy. Let's hang out. We'll play some Paper Mario. Beautiful Joe 2, Soul Calibur 2, Herbs, Sims in the City. Love that game. Star Wars Rebel Strike, SSX Tricky, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Ikaruga, and Crazy Taxi. PN03, Mario Kart Double Dash, Super Mario Sunshine, Chibi Robo. That's right, I got Chibi Robo. FX, F-Zero GX, Star Fox Adventures, Star Wars Rogue Squadron, and it looks like, I think that's like some rental thing that they wrote the name on there, but I like them scruffy. Scruffy games still play. Shadow the Hedgehog, and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and Zelda 4 Swords Adventure, and Sonic Heroes. The Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Well, I have an OG Game Boy Advance right here, and a Famicom Edition Game Boy Advance SP, a modified Game Boy Advance SP with an IPS screen and a custom case mod, a Game Boy Micro Famicom Mini Edition, and even though it's not a Game Boy Advance, this is actually one of the oldest things in here, a Donkey Kong 2 Game & Watch. For the Game Boy Advance, I bought the triple pack of the Metroid games for Game Boy Advance, and it came in this awesome case. So there's the original Metroid, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, my Everdrive GBX5, which can play everything. Then my bootleg games, I have Mother 1 plus 2, Mother 3, a collection of NES games on a bootleg cartridge that my friend got for me when he visited Thailand. Japanese Sonic Advance, Sonic Advance 2 Japanese, Sonic Advance 3 Japanese, US Final Fantasy 1 and 2 Dawn of Souls, Sword of Mana, Guilty Gear X Advanced Editions, Japanese Mario Kart Advance, Konami YY Racers, also known as Konami Crazy Racers, Castlevania NES, River City Ransom EX, my mistake, classic NES series, The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap, Super Mario Advance Japanese, Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario Advance 3, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers, the Famicom Mini Collection, Super Mario Brothers 2 Japanese. This is the hard Famicom, and notice how this is yellow to look like the Famicom disk system. That's why I love having the gold or the yellow Everdrive. Wario Land Advance, Pac-Man Collection, Rhythm Tengoku, also known as Rhythm Heaven, The Herbs Japanese, WarioWare, Made in Wario, Tetris Worlds. Basically, this is Wario Land Twist. Interesting, this is actually way cheaper in Japanese. The American version is crazy expensive. The Japanese version is next to free. Yoshi's Topsy Turvy, also known as Yoshi's Gyration. Crash Bandicoot. I love this because it actually has the crazy Japanese Crash Bandicoot on it. And Mario vs. Donkey Kong on Game Boy Advance. The Nintendo DS. I have a Nintendo DS Lite. I have the Guitar Hero controller, Guitar Hero on Tour, Star Wars Episode 3, Dragon Quest 9, Made in Wario, or WarioWare, Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, New Super Mario Bros., Old Tetakai Owenden 2, Elite Beat Agents, a R4 for playing completely legitimate backups of these, Henry Hatsworth, I freaking love this game, Feel the Magic XXXY, love this game also, Final Fantasy IV, Okami Den, Blue Dragon Plus, Advance Wars Dual Strike, Beautiful Joe, Final Fantasy Ring of Fates, Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, Super Princess Peach, love this game, Final Fantasy III, SNK Card Fighters DS, Sonic Rush with a custom cover made by Marcy Chen, Final Fantasy Tactics A2, Retro Game Challenge, love this game, need to make a video on this, Zelda Phantom Hourglass, Retro Atari, or is it Atari Retro? I don't know. Final Fantasy, 4 Heroes of Light, Space Invaders Extreme, love this game, Space Invaders Extreme 2, also love this game, and Mario Kart DS. Then, at Portland Retro Gaming Expo last year, I got some Japanese import games in the box, and these were on sale. So I got Pyo Pyo 15th Anniversary Edition, a Japanese version of New Super Mario Bros., then Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, Shidaru Made in Wario, Cooking Mama 3, and the highlight of my collection, Mr. Donut DS, a donut making simulation game. For the PlayStation Portable, I have a PlayStation Go. I actually got one early on, and I have quite a bit of downloaded games for it. I have a PlayStation TV, and I have a PlayStation Vita LCD that you could charge with a regular USB connection. I'm a bit of a heretic in that I do not collect the PlayStation Vita cases, I collect them loose. And I also have a ton of downloaded Vita games that I have on the system. In my binder, I have Tearaway, Gunhouse, Wipeout, Street Fighter vs. Tekken, Killzone, Lego Lord of the Rings, Dragon's Crown, Persona 4 Dancing All Night, Hyperdimension Utopia, Uncharted, PlayStation All-Stars, Sly Cooper Collection, Super Monkey Ball, Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, Touch Katamari, Tokiden, Mod Nation Racers Road Trip, Sonic All-Stars Racing's Transform, and Call of Duty Black Ops. So back in the day, I was actually into Xbox 360 in a big way. So I have an Xbox 360S, which I transferred all of my DLC onto, which is quite a bit. In a future video, I'll have to go over all of my downloaded games. Now, I've had problems with the Xbox 360 wireless controllers not only keeping a charge, but not charging. So I actually switched to this is an old school Xbox 360 pad, and it looks like an original one, and it's pretty darn good. Then I have these two Mad Catz fighting controllers. Got a Blanca Street Fighter 4 version and a Ken Street Fighter 4 version. And I have a Guitar Hero 2 controller, which I got to use for the music games, and a USB or a USB microphone. And DJ Hero. I actually think DJ Hero is a freaking awesome music game that doesn't get enough credit. It is cutting edge, and I freaking love DJ Hero. I do not have an original Xbox anymore. I do not have an OG Xbox. I pretty much only play the backwards compatibility games on the Xbox 360, but I'll have to do a video on that in the future. I just realized I found a copy of Wrath of the Black Manta while going through all my games. My Xbox and Xbox 360 collection. Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Guitar Hero World Tour, Jet Set Radio Future, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Project Gotham Racing 3, Ridge Racer 6, Bionic Commando, Sonic All-Star Racing with Banjo and Kazooie, Omeditus Excellent, great game, Prey, discs 1 through 3, Beautiful Katamari, Final Fantasy 13, discs 1, 2, and 3, Final Fantasy 13 2, Red Dead Redemption, Undead Nightmare, Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13, Grand Theft Auto 4, Guitar Hero 3, Gears of War 3, Halo Wars, Gears of War 2, Guitar Hero 2, Brutal Legend, Rock Band 2, Sonic Unleashed, Bayonetta, Unreal Tournament 3, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 1 and 2, Blinks the Time Sweeper. They need to make more of this game. Left 4 Dead, Band Hero, Project Sylphid, Guitar Hero Van Halen, Tenchu Z. Love this game. They need to make more. 2 Human, Guitar Hero 5, Rock Band, Ninja Blade, Red Faction, Armageddon, Star Wars Force Unleashed 2, Guitar Hero Metallica, freaking great. The Simpsons game, Afro Samurai, Transformers War for Cybertron, Star Wars The Clone War, Republic Heroes, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, Portal 2, Beatles Rock Band, love it, Tony Hawk's Underground, Sonic, Sega Superstars Tennis, Sneak King, Samurai Showdown Sen, Sonic Generations, Herbs in the City, Dead or Alive 3, Rayman Origins, SSX, Assassin's Creed, DJ Hero, love DJ Hero, Assassin's Creed 3, Skate 3, Star Wars, Republic Commando, Sonic Heroes, Shenmue 2, Fable 3, DJ Hero 2, Godzilla Save the Earth, Blinks the Time Sweeper, Soul Calibur 5, Project Gotham Racing 4, Ninja Gaiden 2, BlazBlue Extended, and The King of Fighters 2002, Lego Rock Band, Panzer Dragoon Orta, Fable Anniversary, Crimson Skies, Lost Galaxy. I love this game. This needs to be ported to modern systems. Blue Dragon. Love this game. This needs to be ported to modern systems. Wolfenstein. I love this one because I love shooting Nazis and I love shooting zombies. And zombie Nazis get extra bullets. Eternal Sonata, Rock Band 3, Fable 2, Crackdown 2, The Orange Box, and Sonic 06! A note about DLC and downloaded games. I will get to the downloaded games in a later video. Right now, I'm sticking to cartridges and discs. By the way, I guess downloaded digital games are now even more rare because for many of these systems, the official stores have closed, and there are different ways of being a collector and a retro gamer. So I actually have two PlayStation 3 Slims. I have my original one, which I keep in my living room and use to play games. Got a camo controller for it. And this one I actually got used for 45 bucks, which I use in my bedroom with all of my CRTs. I use this to play DVDs and watch movies and streaming on my CRT. And then I have the Sony Bluetooth remote, which is actually really handy for doing this, and a vertical stand for it. By the way, these also play PlayStation 1 games, like all the discs. My PlayStation 3 collection. There is Star Trek the Star Trek, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, Bionic Commando, this game doesn't get enough love, Sonic Generations, 3D Dot Game Heroes, this game is freaking great and they need to make a modern port of it, Sonic Unleashed, Lego Star Wars 3, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, Greatest Hits, again, this is great, Killer is Dead, No More Heroes, Heroes Paradise, Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3, I believe I have a downloaded edition of Dead Space 1, Disgaea 3, Dark Souls, oh, there's my copy of Dark Soul, or my copy of Dead Space. Dead Space is great, The House of the Dead Overkill, the Eco and Shadow of Colossus Collection, Midway Arcade Origin, Disgaea 4. Am I pronouncing it right? If you know in the comments, if you know, leave it down in the comments. Katamari Forever, Sonic 06, Dead or Alive 5, Unreal Tournament 3, Final Fantasy 13 2, Final Fantasy 13, Brutal Legend, Ridge Racer 7. I love Ridge Racer. They need to make more. Ninja Gaiden 3, Yakuza Dead Souls, Fallout New Vegas, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, Fallout 3, Ninja Gaiden Sigma, God of War Saga. So I got Disc 1 with God of War 1 and 2, Killzone Trilogy 1 and 2, and God of War Saga, God of War 3. Eternal Sonata, great game. The Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection, Metal Gear Solid 4, and Little Big Planet, and Star Wars Lego Complete Saga, and Heavenly Sword. And cat hair! I wonder why I have cat hair. The Nintendo 3DS. This is a new Nintendo 3DS XL. I have a whole bunch of downloaded games, which I will save for a next video on downloaded games. On cartridge, I have Ridge Racer 3D, Mario Kart 7, Lego Star Wars 3, Tales of the Abyss, Bravely Default, Bravely Second End Layer, Kid Icarus Uprising, Chibi Robo, Cave Story 3D, Zelda Triforce Heroes, BlazBlue, Lego City Undercover, Super Smash Bros. For 3DS, Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D, Theater Rhythm, Super Mario 3D Land, Super Mario Maker 3D, Bit Trip Saga, Persona Q. The Nintendo Wii U. I have the Wii U itself. This is a 32 gig model. It's got a Legend of Zelda Wii U gamepad for it. There is the Wii U Pro controller. Then I have a black nunchaku, the Wii Motion Plus Black, the Wii Control Pad, or the Classic Control Pad Pro, and the Classic Control Pad for the Wii and Wii U. I do not have an original Wii because I have a Wii U. I've also moved all of my virtual console games to my Wii U before the store closed. My Nintendo Wii and Wii U collection. SNK Arcade Archives, this is great. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Sonic Colors, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, No More Heroes, No More Heroes 2, Epic Mickey, Muramasa, the Demon Blade, freaking love this game, Dead Space Extraction, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Super Paper Mario, Colonna, again, great Wii game, Destroy All Humans, Metroid Prime 3, Zack and Wiki, great game, The Mushroom Men, The Spore Wars, Clone War, Star Wars Clone Wars, Lightsabers Duel, The Last Story, Mario Kart Wii, Samba de Bingo, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, Okami, the Super Mario All-Stars Collection, Punch-Out for Wii, Mad World, Wario Land, Shake It, Castlevania Judgment. This game is great and doesn't get the attention it deserves. House of the Dead, Overkill, Metroid the Other M, Samurai Showdown Anthology, Final Fantasy Crystal Bearers, Metal Slug Anthology, the Zelda CD with a symphonic soundtrack, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, Knights, Wii U. I got Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric, Donkey Kong Country Topical Free, the Yoshi's Woolly World, Super Mario 3D World, Splatoon, you can no longer play, you can play against bots, Tekken Tag Tournament, Wii U Edition, Ninja Gaiden 3, Sigma, the Wonderful 101, Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE, Zombie U, Nintendo Land, Hyrule Warriors, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Maker, Mario Kart 8. I freaking love the Wii U. The Wii U doesn't get the love it deserves. The Zeldas. Do you like Zelda? My God, does the Wii U have Zelda? There is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Do you like Bayonetta? The Wii U has Bayonetta. You got Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2. Love me some Wii U. For the official Emulation mini consoles, there is the NES Classic Edition, the Famicom Classic Edition, the PC-Engine Mini, the Sega Genesis Mini, the Sega Genesis Mini 2, the PlayStation Classic Edition, the Legend of Zelda Game & Watch, the Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch, and the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. Then, for the arcade minis, there is the Sega Astro City Mini, the Sega Astro City Mini V, the NeoGeo Mini, the Taito Egret 2 Mini, and a Jack's Atari plug-in game console. Believe it or not, this is the thing that set off this entire Emulation mini console. And then, finally, the too big for this picture, the SNK NeoGeo Arcade Stick Pro. Then, there is the Taito Egret Mini 2 roller controller and spinner controller, which is pretty cool. And then there is this Jack's TV Games paddle Atari controller, which is actually a heck of a lot of fun. I have a Nintendo Switch Lite, which I love. It's a great system. However, the one thing that it can't do is HDMI output, which I did not actually plan on making a retro game YouTube channel when I got the Switch Lite. So I am a heretic who gets rid of boxes and cases, but I mostly, on the Switch Lite, I mostly have bought downloaded games, but I do have some games that I got. I have Super Smash Bros. Cosmic Fantasy Collection, Zelda Skyward Sword HD, Luigi's Mansion 3, and Bravely Default 2. For my emulation consoles, I have a Raspberry Pi 4 running RetroPie inside a Super Pi 4 case, and I'm using the dongle controller for the 8BitDo SNK NeoGeo gamepad, which is actually really cool, and clicky. Then I have a Miyoo Mini Plus running Onion OS, a little keychain running Qbert, and this awesome bootleg emulation little fake CRT TV with a wireless gamepad that I got last year for the holiday season. So, my most powerful and newest game system, the Sony PlayStation 5. This is an early model. I have a little sticker that under here that has the original Sony logo, and I have a black faceplate for it. There's the original controller, a black controller, the 3D Pulse wireless headset, which I really enjoy, a Hori retro gamepad for the PlayStation 4, the Hori Fighting Stick Mini for the PlayStation 4, the Hori Fighting Commander for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 gamepad, and a Taiko Drum Master controller, and a Hori RAP Re-Arcade Pro 4K. Yes, that's right, kitty. It is. All right, this is my PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 disc collection. Street Fighter 6, Lost Judgment, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Forbidden West. Sackboy, Dirt 5, Tales of Arise, Far Cry 6, Returnal, like this game, Judgment, awesome, Tiny Tina's Wonderland, Resident Evil Village, Devil May Cry 5, King of Fighters 15, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Neo 2, Neo Remastered, Elden Ring, Dying Light 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Aliens Fireteam Elite, and then on PlayStation 4, Until Dawn, Odin Sphere, King of Fighters 14, Valkyrie Chronicles 4, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Valkyria Chronicles, Batman Arkham Knight, Dark Souls 3, Gravity Rush 2, The Last Guardian, Gravity Rush, Dead Island Definitive Edition, Devil May Cry, World of Final Fantasy, Killzone, Shadowfall, Avengers, Fallout 4, Watch Dogs 2, The Witcher 3, God of War 3 Remastered, Overwatch, Dishonored, Lego Star Wars Force Awakens, Mirror's Edge Catalyst, Ratchet and Clank, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Toukiden 2, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, The Last of Us Remastered, Biomutant, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and East that I need to return to my friend Noah. So I'm going to take it out and actually mail it back to him. This is the Evercade EXP. It is a awesome Linux-powered portable emulation device that plays games on cartridges. It is my latest system that I started collecting for. So I have the Evercade EXP. I also have the Taito Hyper Megatech Super Pocket, which is the scaled down version of it, which is compact and has built-in games. Interplay Collection 1, Pico Collection 1, Sunsoft Collection 1, Sunsoft Collection 2, Full Void, Sydney Hunter Collection, Morphcat Games Collection 1, Demons of Asterberg and Astbros, Jalico Collection, Megacat Studios Collection 1, Atari Lynx Collection 1, and it's signed by Carl, can't read his last name. That's pretty cool. Atari Lynx Collection 2, Namco Museum Collection 1. This is out of print. Namco Museum Collection 2, Goodbye Galaxy and Witch and Whiz, Renovation Collection 1, Xenocrisis and Tangleweeds, Indie Heroes Collection 1, Indie Heroes Collection 2, Indie Heroes Collection 3, Atari Collection 1, Atari Collection 2, Intellivision Collection 1, Intellivision Collection 2, Data East Collection 1. For the Evercade arcade cartridges, there is Ireme Arcade 1, Atari Arcade 1, Jalico Arcade 1, Toplan Arcade 1, Toplan Arcade 2, Toplan Arcade 1, Data East Arcade 1, Technos Arcade 1, and Pico Arcade 1. And there is the Terra Onion Super System Pro HD, the Everdrive N8, the Terra Onion Mega SD, the Everdrive N8 Fami, the Super Everdrive X6, the Everdrive 64 X7, the R4, the Everdrive GBA, the Neo Pocket Game Drive, and the Everdrive GB X7, and the Everdrive GG X7. You know, for playing backups of legitimate games that I totally own. Oh, I almost forgot the Master Everdrive X7. This sucker will play on the Sega Master System, power-based converter, and it can play SG-1000 games on the OG Sega Master System. Love it. And for cleaning and maintenance, there is the Pink Gorilla Games Bootleg Buddy Toolkit, the 1UP Card Sega Genesis MegaDrive Console Cleaner, the PAL SNES / Super Famicom 1UP Card Console Cleaner, the Famicom Console Cleaner, a large 1UP card, pack of 1UP cards, a mini 1UP card, pack of mini 1UP cards, 1UP Card Console Cleaner NES console, 1UP Card Console Cleaner for the Game Boy, and then I have a little thing of industrial alcohol, which was originally 1UP card, but I refilled it with generic industrial alcohol. That's 99.9. Then I got some Game Rejuvenator straight from Japan, a pink pearl eraser for cleaning cartridges, a toothbrush that I just used for cleaning systems, and some port cleaner toolkits, metal nippers tool, which is for assembling Gundam models, which I have not gotten into, but I have neutralized 2 NES lockout chips with it, and I have modified a Super Nintendo for international support. A spudger. This is for prying open plastic, and another different kind of spudger for opening consoles. This is a toolkit for opening consoles. Good old long screwdriver. And then finally, to show off, the Pink Gorilla Bootleg Buddy Toolkit. Hey, since you stayed to the end, you should totally click that subscribe button and let YouTube know that you like this video by hitting that like button. Thanks for watching. This is 8-Bit Joystick. Stay awesome. Play retro.